Can we have the first slide on, please? Hi, everybody who's already logged in. Thank you for joining us at the Red Pen Journey to College event today. My name is Tripti Singh. I'm the postgraduate head at the Red Pen. And we're going to start in just like maybe 2 more minutes. We're just going to let some other people join in the session, and then we're going to start. Thank you for your patience. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Tripti Singh. I am the head of postgraduate team at the Red Pen. And I will welcome each and every one of you to our postgraduate Journey to College event 2021. This event has been put together by the Red Pen for prospective applicants, much like yourself, who are considering master's degrees from leading graduate schools around the globe. Now, in my experience of over a decade, I have noticed that most students find this process of applying to international universities quite overwhelming. But if you were to see this process as a sum of its parts, work on each of those components and parts systematically and progressively, then the whole process isn't overwhelming anymore, and you can get your dream admit. Our panel today is comprised of students who did exactly that. They're going to shed light on their journey that highlights just how they were able to conquer each part successfully and land up with a dream admit. I'm going to take a moment and introduce our panelists to you here today. Hi, panelists. Thank you for agreeing to share your application journey and insights with all our prospective applicants who have joined us today. Let's first go across the panel, and if each one of you could introduce yourself. Anshul, we'll start with you. If you could just please let us know how old you are, your undergraduate degree, the program you're currently going to study, and the university where you're going.
All right. Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Anshul Serene, and my undergraduate degree was bachelor's in engineering in mechanical engineering with a second major in economics. I'm currently 22 years old, and I will be attending Columbia University for the MS in Management Science and Engineering given by the Industrial Engineering and Operations Research Department.
Thank you, Anshul. Hi, Preet, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Preet Jain, and I I'm 24 years old. I did my undergrad in chemical engineering from Penn State, and I worked in Pittsburgh for 2 years. And now I'm going to be going to Carnegie Mellon for my master's in information system management with a concentration in business intelligence and data analytics.
Thank you, Preet. Hi, Hannah. We'd love for you to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Hannah Muthoot, 25 years old, and I did my undergraduate from Northeastern University in Boston, and I did it in business with a concentration in entrepreneurship and innovation and a minor in social innovation. And currently, I'm planning to go for my master's next June in University of Southern California in a similar degree of social innovation.
Thank you for the introduction, Hannah. Hi, Aratrika. Can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, am I audible, Tripti?
Yes, Aratrika. We can hear you.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Aratrika. I did my bachelor's and master's in economics. I finished my master's in 2018. After that, I've been working as a healthcare consultant with PwC's US advisory team. And I'm heading for my MPA, the Master's in Public Administration at LSE. Nice to meet you guys.
Thank you so much, guys, once again for agreeing to come and speak to prospective applicants. I'm going to start with an icebreaker out here, right? I want each one of you, and we can go across the panel. We can start with Aratrika. I want each one of you to please finish this sentence for me. The most stressful aspect of the process for me was, Aratrika?
I think for me, it would be managing my time.
Okay, all right. Actually, quite bingo. Hannah, how about you?
I had two actually. One is preparing for the GRE, and secondly was multitasking.
Okay, awesome. And we are going to talk about the GRE a little later. Preet, what was the most stressful aspect of the application for you?
Mine is similar to Hannah's. Studying for the GRE, finding the time to really, basically finding the time to study for it.
Mm-hmm. Got it. And Anshul?
So I have two. I think one would definitely be developing the perfect SOP, as that is the only time you get a chance to tell your story to the admissions team. And then the second thing was after the application process, the interview rounds that I had. So yeah, those two.
Interesting. All right. So yes, standardized testing is like a really big hurdle for a lot of students to cross. And we are going to touch upon that. What I do want to start off today's discussion with is from the very beginning. The first, remember when I mentioned some of the parts, I think the first critical element here would be what to study. Aratrika and Hannah, this question is for you. What and how did you pick your area of interest? Aratrika specifically because you moved away. But also, Hannah, you thought you wanted to move away, but then actually now it's quite related. So I want to understand from both of you, how did you pick what you wanted to study?
Yeah, I can go first. The reason I wanted to study social innovation for my master's is because since high school, I had a lot of experience, starting my own nonprofit when I was in high school, then doing a lot of experiences in a similar field. And my family business also has big concentration on microfinance, which again falls under social innovation. And so it was always my area of interest and even my passion to work with development. And when I went for my undergraduate, it only heightened it since I took a minor in social innovation, and I was able to travel to different places and get an experience regarding it. So I was pretty sure when I came back that I wanted a very specific master's. I remember having conversations with you and saying, this is one thing I'm sure about. I want to do my master's in something that I love and I'm passionate about, which is going to be something along the lines of social entrepreneurship and innovation. And I was lucky enough that there were a lot of amazing programs out there.
Right. Aratrika, love to hear the same from you.
Mine would be slightly different from Hannah's. Since I'm coming from a corporate background, for me, it made sense to kind of go for something just slightly broad. I am interested personally in development policy and climate policy, but I thought I haven't dabbled in those professionally. So it might make more sense for me to go for an MPP or an MPA, see what the different fields are like, explore it a bit for 2 years, and then choose my niche and then start working towards that. So yeah,
That's why MPP or MPA. For all our people who've tuned in today, MPP is Masters in Public Policy, MPA is Masters in Public Administration. So that was something that Aratrika was hoping to get as an admit. Anshul, you and Preet, you, both of you have pure engineering undergraduate degrees. Preet, you graduated some time back. Anshul, you're still just graduating. And yet you both chose specializations for your masters that are not pure engineering, right? What drove that decision? Anshul, let's start with you.
All right. So yeah, I just graduated from National University of Singapore in mechanical engineering. And a large part of my undergraduate journey was, so I was part of a research project for over 2 years now. And as part of the research project, not only was I a research engineer, but I was also involved in the project management aspect of it, the decision-making aspect of it, and the problem-solving aspects of the project. And so because I was so interested in these three aspects, I decided to apply for programs in either engineering management, innovation management and entrepreneurship, or even like in Columbia Management Science and Engineering. So these were the main aspects that I didn't want to just focus on a technical, like focusing on a technical background, but focusing more on the decision-making, the analytics aspect of it. So those two main aspects drove me towards focusing on another, like a slightly different background in engineering, but a different focus.
Got it. Preet, what drove your decision to move away from chemical engineering?
Right. So in my senior year, I started listening to podcasts, and I came across this podcast where the founders of the company Wayfair, which is an online furniture company, they spoke about their journey and how they used analytics and how they used software engineering to bring their company up, which mainly dealt with furnitures. And then I started looking more into it. And after my senior year, when I started working, one of the projects was about me analyzing images to analyze particles in an image and determine the size and everything of that. So I had to create a method of my own, because I mean, in chemical engineering, you don't do a lot of analytical work or like any information technology work. So I had to develop my own method, which drove my interest into analytics further. And then I started looking at programs at different universities and started looking at the coursework, which really interested me. So I went along that path.
Got it. Yeah, it's actually been quite a fascinating journey, because when I worked with all four of you, the conversations leading to all four of you then doing a lot of research, backing up your instinct with, okay, I think I want to study this, with going out, finding out what is it that the university is offering and things like that, kind of help each one of you get a lot of conviction. And I think all that conviction kind of translated into the essays that each one of you submitted to the universities. At this point, I'd like to remind all people who've tuned in that there will be an option to ask questions of Aratrika, Anshul, Hannah, and Preet. So go ahead and make a note of your questions. If you want, just put them in the Q&A box, and I will definitely get to them, and I'll moderate a session on Q&A for the four panelists. Preet, just to continue the conversation with you right now, how many years of WorkX do you have?
2 years.
2 years, so 24 months of WorkX. And do you think you having 24 months of WorkX has helped you in showcasing a more competitive profile?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot out there in the real world that is not really taught in your undergrad. Problem solving is something that is taught, but project management is something that's not really taught. That's one thing that I really was able to, check mark on my list of things. Another thing was communication. You're communicating with people who are not only at your level, but also to the level of the CEO. So I worked at a startup company. So I had daily interactions with my CEO, and being able to, fine tune like your conversations with them is something that you get to learn. And I think that really helped me when I was applying for colleges as well, because I sort of understood how the admissions committee would think of my essay versus how my friend would think about it. So
Got it. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Aratrika, would you also agree, because you also applied for a master's that is not related to the work that you're currently doing? So do you also think that the transferable skills, which were like Preet said, more communication, more understanding what your strengths are, who you are as a person in that space, kind of gave you more confidence and therefore a better impact in your essay?
Yeah, 100%. So I feel like I'm right now a lot more mentally prepared to go into this than I was, say, 3 years back. Firstly, what Preet mentioned, like the communication skills, because you're talking to directors, partners, and client, and even people at your level every day. And secondly, like I worked in consulting, analytics focused consulting. So that is to do with data and analytics, which is kind of omnipresent everywhere today, right? Having that only helps you in wherever you go. So I'm sure that it's going to be kind of helpful for MPP, MBA as well, since it's quite a quantitative course. So definitely helps.
Definitely help. Anshul, you are going straight from NUS into Columbia. Do you also feel ready? Do you feel like I lack the confidence, I lack the conviction, or do you feel like, no, because I had so much subject matter engagement while I was at NUS that I do feel prepared to take on whatever Columbia throws my way?
So definitely studying at NUS, which is one of the most competitive universities in Asia, and also considered one of the best universities in Asia, definitely prepares me to take on the different challenges of subject matter engagement that I will have in Columbia. Definitely the subject matter will be very different from what I currently studied, but I feel that through my research work, I got a chance to be able to show my multitasking abilities, also my abilities to be able to undertake a work that is that I'm able to learn as I go on. Because so when I was able to show that through my SOP, I think that definitely helped them and convinced them that I'm capable to join Columbia. Definitely one of the aspects that I also looked at was having no work experience. Will that provide a disadvantage to me? And majority of the people who do get accepted for my program, especially, were people who have like a strong work experience of at least 2 years. But I feel that if you have the right work experience and the right profile starting on, I think that will support your application process.
Okay. On that note, Anshul, how many admits did you finally get? If you don't mind sharing that data with us.
All right, yeah, sure. So I applied to around 12 universities, 12 to 13 universities, and I was admitted to 9 of them, and I was waitlisted for 2 of them.
Okay, and if you don't mind, can you name some of the universities that you've let go of, that you were admitted to, but you let go of?
Yeah, so definitely when I had to let go of universities, it was very stressful time, and Tripti knows it too. Like like my parents and I sat with Tripti and her team for like I think 3 times in like 2 weeks just to decide which course to undertake. But so the universities that I had to unfortunately let go was John Hopkins, Carnegie Mellon, Cornell, Brown, NYU, U Toronto, ETH Zurich, and EPFL. So yeah, these were some of them that I had to let go.
Then how did you pick Columbia from all these stellar admits? I remember telling you all the time, Anshul, there's no wrong answer. Anshul, there's no right answer, there's no wrong. But there's no wrong answer in your case, right?
Yeah.
And the curriculums were a little bit more or less the same.
Yeah.
So then how did you pick the right?
So I think one thing that you actually brought up was to undertake a curriculum in which I will learn something new, which I didn't have in my undergraduate journey. And so in Columbia specifically, so I applied for engineering management, management science and engineering, and innovation and entrepreneurship. And engineering management and innovation and entrepreneurship were more qualitative in nature. But whereas in Columbia, which was management, science, and engineering, it's only given by Columbia and Stanford. So these are quantitative in nature. And I have a strong background in maths, so I thought that would definitely help. And I also wanted to explore analytics, data analytics, machine learning, which I hadn't yet explored properly in my undergraduate journey. Like I used them, but I didn't get a chance to explore. So I think choosing Columbia was, I think, that main aspect. And as mentioned by Aratrika, that data is a very important aspect now in all corporate fields. So I think getting a chance to learn that and exploring that further in Columbia will definitely help me. So yeah, that was one of the reasons.
Okay, all right. I think really well explained about how you did that move, right? Let's, Aratrika, you too had some stellar admits, right? Do you mind sharing which ones?
So I applied to 8 places. I got accepted at 7. The ones I had to let go was Columbia, CMU, Chicago, Hurdy School of Governance, which is based out of Berlin, NUS, and Tufts. Yeah.
Okay. And you're finally going to London School of Economics. Sorry?
Singapore was the one I got rejected in. I thought that didn't help me. Yeah.
Yeah, you got rejected from Singapore, right? And you finally deciding to study your MPP at London School of Economics and Political Science.
Yeah.
How did you reach this decision?
So, Tripti, I discussed with you also. I was like very paranoid. I was like, what? Really, it's difficult. Like, I would never know what would happen in a parallel universe if I chose Columbia. Like, I don't know if I'm losing out. I don't know if I'm gaining anything, but it's more of like I asked one of my professors after, I got the admits and I sent the list to him, one of my recommenders. And I was like, what is your feedback? Like, let me know your inputs. And he said one line, which I didn't really think of. And now that I think back, I feel like that's exactly what I did. He was like, see, all of these are great places. Just choose the one you like the most. So I've always, like, LSE was the first I started my application process with. That was my first SLP. It was first in my shortlist. So I didn't really focus too much on the research because, of course, US has a better, wider job network, etc. But it also kind of matters what has been like your dream university where you really want to go. So just went with that.
Got it. So then, and I know you did a lot of research in the curriculum, and all of you panelists know, right, that I'm constantly about safeguard your curriculum fit, right? If you like the curriculum, then it doesn't matter where it's being offered. It's the place to go. So, and I know, Aratrika, you did that. You did a lot of research into the curriculum, right? And do you think that I would be right if I therefore conclude that by choosing London School of Economics over the other universities that you had admits to and that stressed you out about how can I give this one up, how can I give that one up, now you feel like you're not really losing out on anything? Would I be right if I conclude that, Aratrika?
Yeah, to be honest, that's what I was saying. I don't know. That only time will tell. But I guess all these places are decent. So I guess it's what you make out of the program, because curriculums are also pretty comparable. So it's just what you do in those students.
But you're not feeling any regret, are you? Are you still feeling that, why did I let Columbia go? Why did I let Chicago go? Are you feeling anything of that sort, emotional angst?
Not really. Now, by now, I've kind of let go of that.
Right. Hannah, I wanted to actually talk to you once about this as well. Because when we first started working, you really wanted to go to UK.
Yeah.
You were like, it's 1 year. I want to go to the UK. I've studied in the US. I want to be in London. But now you have this like super amazing admit in the United States.
Yeah.
Does it matter? Does it really matter? UK, US?
I would say that it does. It does matter where you are placed geographically, because forgetting the curriculum part of it, so much of your 70% of your rest of your time is based on, like, do you enjoy the place that you're in and the happiness you're going to get? Because when you look back, that's what you're going to remember from it. Because I remember from my undergrad also, like, no one spoke to you really about, do you want to go to Boston? It was just picking the colleges. So that's the reason why I really wanted to go to the UK and get a different experience. and meet different kind of people, get a different learning rather than just focus on the universities. So that was my thinking. And then when I started researching on the curriculums, like you said, USC really stood out to me. Like everything about it really spoke out to me, the way that the opportunities that they offered. So when I did get into USC, I definitely wanted to stay far away from the East Coast, since I already got an experience from that. So I kind of convinced myself, if I'm in the West Coast, that's still a different experience to what I had in my undergrad. So that's what I kind of was looking at. If I'm going to get a like get to know new people and have a new experience.
Got it. So it was all that USC had to offer for you, which kind of helped you. And I love the fact that you mentioned the East Coast versus West Coast, because there's another person on this panel who spent lots of hours speaking to me about his preference for the West Coast. Preet, I'm talking about you. I'm sure you know. Because I don't want to be on the East Coast. I've just experienced it. I've done it all. I have to be on the West Coast. And you did get like an almost West Coast admit.
Yeah. So the reason I wanted to go to the West Coast was because I was going to finish 6 years on the East Coast, and I was sick and tired of the winter here. So I really wanted to go to that side of the world. But yeah, I got into UWash, Foster School of Business. But eventually it was about the curriculum for me, because eventually it's what you're going to university to learn. So I wanted to get the most out of it. Location matters, but not at the expense of your curriculum. So my recommendation would be curriculum first.
Awesome. And I honestly could not wrap up this conversation at a much more focused note, because if I had to sum it up, I would talk about aligning your decision to study, whether in the UK, the US, Singapore, Hong Kong, Canada, or on the east side of that country, the west side of that country. It all will eventually boil down to your short-term goals. Does the curriculum at that particular university align to your short-term goals? And then you've got to back that instinct up with extensive, exhaustive research, and then you'll feel convinced about your decision, right? Moving on, let's talk a little bit about recommendations and recommenders, to be honest. Admission officers, for everybody who's listening in today, have very often told us that they read recommendations very closely. Since this is a graduate process, they aren't looking at work certificates and letter of employment. So they do weigh the recommendation letters quite heavily, whether they be academic or professional. I just want to go over the recommender selection strategy that each one of you had. Let's just quickly go across the panel. Anshul, we'll start with you. Any specific reason or strategy that you used for your recommender? And then were there any elements of your profile that you insisted that they include, or did you request them to include? It's going to be like a quick...
All right. Sure. So my recommenders were all three academic, because I do not have a professional background. So I think two of my recommenders were based on the project work that I was doing for over 2 years. And so they have known me for over 2 years. So I think that was the main aspect that why I chose those two recommenders. And apart from that, I think the focus that I wanted them to focus on was definitely my project work. Also focusing on how I was able to undertake this project work during the COVID-19 pandemic, because a large chunk of it was done during that time. And also my academic work, because I did some of my projects under them. So I think those two I chose for those aspects. And then the third recommender I chose because I worked with him very recently, just before my application. So that was the time where I undertook another additional research work in innovation and management. And because also he was a PhD student studying at Harvard, so he would bring a new, different perspective into my recommendations, because he himself is a student and has done his master's and PhD. So I think those were the reasons why I chose my recommenders.
Okay. Hannah, how about you?
So I had two academic ones, because I didn't have enough work experience at the point when I was applying. And the two people that I chose were mentors for me during university. I spent a lot of time with them, going for work, study trips, and even spent time just talking about my passion and interest on a lot of the social innovation work that I'm doing back in India, including the work that my family business does. So they were very well aware of my uh, interest for the subject of social innovation. So the reason why I picked them is because I wanted them to highlight those sort of soft skills rather than my academic standing. I wanted them to kind of say how they could really see my passion and interest for social innovation and for my family business um, and the fact that they probably saw that I would want to come and make a difference back at home. So that's the reason why I chose both of them.
Okay. Ratrika, your recommendation strategy?
I had 4 recommenders, 2 academic and 2 professional. And my academic ones were professors who taught me macroeconomic policy and econometrics, which are very central to any MPP, MBA course. I sent across some of my papers, which I wrote, under term papers, which I wrote under their subjects, etc., to them so that they can review it and kind of get a perspective on which are the areas that I can be interested in. For my corporate, profession recommenders, I chose my manager and director, who I work with pretty closely since the last 2 years. So yeah, a strategy was basically I kind of spread it out. I did not concentrate on 1 or 2 of them, so that in case one was not that great, also I could pretty much balance it out. It worked. Okay.
Got it. And Preet, you?
So I had 2 academic ones and 1 professional. The 2 academic ones were chosen solely on the basis of how much time I spent with them and how much they know about me, because all I was bringing to the program were my transferable skills. So one of them was my thesis professor, and the other one was someone who I took a class with in my sophomore year, but kept in constant, I was constantly in touch with him. So he pretty much knew me. For my professional one, I reached out to the CEO of my company, who went to Carnegie Mellon as well for his undergrad and master's. So I thought it would be a good addition to have on my application, because the admissions committee would be happy listening to someone from the same program, same university.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So end to end, yes, pick your recommenders very carefully and make sure that they know you personally, so they can have a lot of examples to share about you. Now let's talk a little bit about essays. I know, Anshul, super stressed out process for you, but still great technical essay, Preet, for you as well. The one person I definitely want to speak about essays at length with is Hannah, because Hannah, I want to understand what was the most important element of your essay, and I want the people who've logged in today to also understand, because we took some time, little back and forth with the exact narrative, right?
Yeah.
And I knew somewhere in your head something was going on, because we did go a lot of back and forth, but you always had a different perspective with your own story. So I want to know now what final strategies worked for you in that essay writing process, because what we ended up with was like a tremendously good essay. So I want to know what happened in your head through that process.
Yeah, I agree. I think we ended up with a really good essay. And the reason for that is because I really wanted 2 things, my recommendation and my essays, to be the stars for the application. Generally because my academic, and I'm a very average academic student. So for me to get into an exceptional course, it requires me to highlight the soft skills that I'm going to bring in and the passion and interest that I have for the program. So that's kind of what I wanted to highlight for my essay. And that's a little challenging to do, because usually SOPs and essays are more technical and you bring in a lot of data and things like that. Whereas I wanted to bring in a story of how since high school, I've kind of picked up so many work experiences. I've gotten a lot of world learning, traveled across a lot of places to pick up on social entrepreneurship. So I wanted that to come across, what I've learned outside the classroom rather than what all I had done in the classroom. So that was my that was the main reason why there was so much back and forth. I think it was a very unique way of approaching it, I believe. Is there anything else that you think, Tripti, that kind of highlighted my essay?
No, I think what I did want you to highlight was what you exactly said, that there was this very strong conviction about saying that I know that I do have data to share and I do have a technical standpoint because I have started working, but there is this aspirational person within me who wants to tell her story. And you stuck to that conviction and it worked for you, right? It may not have worked everywhere, but it definitely worked where it mattered.
Right, exactly. And also, just to add one more thing, there was a lot of back and forth that, we should also highlight how much I can probably come back and do in India because of the resources I have with my family business, which is largely in finance. I wanted to keep that part of my essay, but I still wanted my individuality to come across a lot in my essay and me to be a separate person from my family business because I had done a lot of work around social innovation. So I think that was also one key area that helped me bring about my essay well.
I agree. Absolutely. And I'm going to move a little bit away from the essay because I see a lot of questions coming in the box. And we are definitely going to answer the questions in a few minutes. We're going to go over the little bit of some of my questions for the panelists, and then we're going to bring to your questions. So I wanted to, but there are a lot of questions about the GRE, right? So I want to quickly jump into the standardized testing, and all four of you are kind of stressed out with the standardized testing. Aratrika, you gave 2 attempts.
Right.
Correct? Weren't happy, gave another attempt. What happened? What was the jump? And how much of a difference, in your opinion, do you think your jump made?
So I had a jump of about 5 points. So it's not like a major jump, but I had a target in my mind that had to be above this threshold. So it crossed that threshold. It just satisfied me. From my side, I was satisfied. I didn't really get a lot of time to prepare for GRE, honestly. So I was okay with the score that I got.
Fair. But you also applied in a year with COVID, and there was an option of taking a waiver, right? And if I'm not mistaken, you did fall sick as well in the middle sometime, right? You were like unwell, you couldn't. So there was this back and forth with health and work, and the essay was stressing you out. You could have easily taken the waiver. Why didn't you opt for that instead of giving a second attempt?
So initially, I thought I would take a waiver. I decided in August that I'll take the GRE, and I took it in October. So I was like, if it helps make my application even a little bit stronger, then I'll go for it. Let's not leave any stone unturned. So the challenge for me was mostly vocab, because that is something that you know or you don't know. It's a lot of mugging up. And so yeah, I think that was the biggest challenge, the vocab part, to catch up on that. Quant relatively was
easier. Okay, and that was going to be my question to you. Quant was easier for you. Hannah, for you, quant was easier, verbal was easier?
So I started off telling you, Tripti, that I don't want to do GRE. That's also one of the main reasons I wanted to go to the UK, because I did not want to do standardized testing at all. And I believe that quant is going to be much harder for me. So I focused a lot on quant. I put in a lot of hard work. I took time off from my work and got 2 tutors to just teach me math, because I stopped learning math from 10th grade. So I started learning from the basics, and I actually did better on my quant section than on my other section. So I think if you put in the time and effort, you'll definitely be able to, because I'm someone who cannot do basic math. So if I could do well for quant, I think most people can.
What awesome advice, because it's exactly what I tell people. And I remember sitting in the room and telling you, if it's not rocket science, Hannah, you can do it, right?
Yeah.
So, Anshul, coming from a STEM background, was the verbal section a steep mountain to climb?
Yeah, so for me personally, I found the verbal section to be much more challenging. The quant was fairly straightforward because I've done math throughout my life. And so it was just mainly practice. But yeah, the verbal section was something that I struggled with. And I did try to attempt it the second time again to increase my verbal score specifically, but it didn't increase much, like at all. So hence, I think a good advice that you gave me, Tripti, was to now focus on my TOEFL, because TOEFL is purely verbal. And so if I'm able to do really well in TOEFL, then that can substitute for my verbal section. And I really followed that. And in my TOEFL, I did really well. I got like a 118 out of 120. So I think that definitely helped in my poor verbal score in GRE.
Yeah. Preet, same question for you. Was the verbal giving you nightmares, sleepless nights, all of that?
Not sleepless nights, but yeah, it was definitely the one that was more difficult for me. Quant wasn't as hard because, like Anshul, I had done a lot of math throughout my life. The verbal section is challenging, but the standardized testing in general is not about what you already know. It's what you can learn and how well you can learn that and apply it in the exam. So I went in very anxiously starting this whole process, but being on the other side of it, I would say don't be anxious. Just focus on the material and you'll do well.
Okay. Quick round of advice from all of you guys. COVID is still here. People are still wondering whether they should take a GRE or a GMAT waiver. Anshul, would you say take a waiver or challenge yourself?
No. So personally, I did not take the waiver because like even though some universities give waivers, many universities also do not give waivers. And there is still in your application portal, the GRE score is still mentioned to submit. And I think if you do undertake the GRE, you can submit your score, it can give a good competitive edge against the other applicants. So I think take up the GRE. And also if the GRE is very, it's easy to do from home because you can book your slot anytime, you can change it at any time. So I thought it was fairly comfortable. So yeah, challenge yourself.
Preet, your advice, take the GRE GMAT or apply for a waiver?
Definitely take it. You have nothing to lose. Some universities do give you the waiver. And if you feel like you haven't done well enough, you can always choose not to send your scores. But it's always better to send your scores because it shows that you're committed to applying to universities and doing well here. So definitely take it.
Super. Hannah, we know your advice. You said take it. If I can do it, anybody can do it. And I don't agree with that because I always knew you would do well. So, but yeah, I agree with your advice. Do it. What about you, Aratrika? What would you advise?
Yeah, for sure. If you already have a strong profile, it just makes it stronger. If you don't, then it's even better. You have something else to show. I think what I missed out last time, Tripti, was my biggest problem with GRE personally was just having the patience to sit for 3 hours. I think it's not about how much you know. It's not that difficult. Most of us can do it. It's just having the concentration and focus for 3 hours is just very difficult. So I would say take a lot of mocks, even if you don't have a lot of time to like sit down with the textbooks. That will be very helpful.
I do remember speaking about meditation with you once. I don't remember with the GRE context or otherwise, but I actually have told a lot of people who had the same advice that I can't sit for 3 hours. It's draining me. And we've spoken about building meditation into their profile to get to that level. But yeah, great advice, to be honest. So now we have covered panelists. We've covered what to study, where to study. We've covered the GRE. We've covered recommendation. We've even spoken about essays. I want to talk about two more aspects. I want to talk about extracurriculars, community engagement, and I want to speak about the interviews. Anshul, Preet, Aratrika, quick rapid fire. Did you guys have any compelling community work or extracurricular engagement that made it into your SOP and that you spent a considerable number of words describing? Preet?
No, not for me.
Anshul?
So in my main SOPs, it didn't like a lot of extracurricular or community service didn't enter, but I had additional essays which focused on community service and engagement. So that time I did focus on the work that I did in Laos. So I think that was some of the, and also the research project also to some extent was also used for that. But in my main SOP was mainly my research project and like the two main research projects that I did.
Got it. And Aratrika, for you?
Yeah, I did feature, since it's a development program, I had to add why my interest in this got sparked in the first place. So I started my SOP with an anecdote which involved some form of community engagement and built upon that.
Got it. Hannah, you actually had this amazing community work, right? And we've spoken about it through the discussion about how your family business is involved in microfinancing work and projects, and you have been organically involved with that, right? And all of this aligned with your goals so beautifully. So can you share that part of your profile and tell us how you leveraged your experience in the essays versus just making it like a creative writing thing? How did you really leverage those community work engagement to make it an SOP or a personal statement level of a narrative?
Yeah. So my essay was very solely focused on all the community engagements I had done. And I think I actually found it kind of challenging to pick, because I found all of them to have made such a huge impact when I did those community engagements. So the way that I believe I was able to communicate it well was try to bring in how whatever you're doing right now in terms of community engagement, how the course is going to help you build on that community engagement when you either when you come back or either when you're going to continue that project in some way. So kind of making them not as two separate things, but on how they're going to help you build on each other. So that's what helped me. For instance, I spoke a lot about microfinance in my essays. So I said that the course in social innovation will guide me very well when I'm coming back to India and starting to work again with microfinance on taking it one level up. So that's what I try to do.
Got it. Okay, excellent. And this also brings me to another element which Anshul, you mentioned to me was one of the scary aspects of your process. I want to tell everybody who's logged in today that in the last 2 years, I have seen a very drastic increase in the number of universities and schools within that university interviewing candidates across Europe, Singapore, Australian, UK, US, Canadian universities. It's actually become now a very integral part of a master's or a graduate school application. Aratrika, were you interviewed?
Yeah, I did have
Okay.
3.
3. Preet, how about you?
I had 6.
Okay, Anshul, you?
Yeah, so I had 6 face-to-face interviews via the webcam and 2 just pre-recorded interviews where they highlight the questions and I need to answer.
And you needed to answer. Hannah, how about you?
I had 2 pre-recorded ones, no live.
No live ones. Okay. Let's quickly go around asking everybody, what did they ask you? Do you remember some questions that they asked you, overarching themes, etc.? Let's start with you, Aratrika.
Yeah, so my interviews, 2 of them were pre-recorded, CMU and Columbia, and 1 was face-to-face, which was NUS. So the Columbia, I don't remember the exact question, but the Columbia one was something to do with my opinion on social security. It was pretty open-ended, so you had to kind of interpret it on your own. Second one was CMU, which was more anecdotal. It was my experience in my first workplace where I narrated my experience in my internship. So you get 1.5 minutes to prepare after seeing the question, and then you have to talk about it for another 1.5 minutes. And the NUS one was case study based. So I got a case study 30 minutes prior to the interview, and then I had to go through it and then answer questions during the face-to-face interview. And there were a few current affairs, political questions, etc., that the interviewer asked.
Got it. Anshul, you?
Yeah, so I had 6 live interviews, so they go on for about like 40 to 45 minutes usually. But I think something interesting that I had was in Cornell, I had the case study interview where they give you a case study before, like half an hour before. And for 15 to 20 minutes, they will ask you questions based on it and ask your opinions on it, etc. And in Toronto, I had like a case consultancy kind of interview. Obviously, I wasn't prepared for it. And I think they also know like you aren't like the best prepared for it, but you need to try to answer it based on your knowledge that you have previously. So I think that helped. But I think mainly it's based on behavioral questions, what you have done. I mean, like to show them how you have shown leadership skills, etc., responsibility. And the main things is that me also trying to tell them where I see myself in the future, what I want to do, how will this course definitely help me, and my past research work and how that has helped me in my application journey. So I think these were the main aspects that they focused on.
All right. Hannah, how about you? Your pre-recorded ones?
My pre-recorded ones, I think they were very straightforward. Like two or three questions is what you normally get in a interview. Like, what was your biggest learning recently? Did you have a challenge? And then how did you overcome it? Questions like that. And one or two questions are very random. I can't really remember what exactly they were. They were very like random questions that you kind of need to think in those 30 seconds. But what really helped me was doing the pre-recorded questions beforehand and sending it to you and saying like what I need to improve on. That definitely helped me a lot and really calmed my nerves.
Oh, that's good feedback, actually.
Yeah. Also, one more thing I just want to bring up with the interviews is that it was very conversational. So it wasn't just like them directing like questions to you. It was more like a conversation that you're having with them. So it was very, I think, laid back, relaxed. Yeah. So it's not as stressful as I imagine. But yeah.
It would be. Preet, you.
So I had one live interview, and like Anshul said, it was very laid back and just conversational, getting to know you, sort of also verify that you are the one who wrote your essay. For the pre-recorded ones, they are behavioral, and that's where my extracurriculars and my work experience helped me a lot. Talking about project management, talking about challenges and how you overcome them. One interesting question that I had was, if I were sitting in a room with two famous people, what question I would ask them and why. So these are questions you can't prepare from before, but it's what you think on the spot, and there's obviously not a wrong answer. They just want to see your thought, understand your thought process. So stay calm and just think through it.
That's great advice, to be honest. I mean, couldn't be put better by me also. Just stay calm, and you know your narrative. Nobody else knows your narrative better than you. So you'll be fine through an interview. That for sure. On this note, I'm going to open up the floor for discussion to actually Q&A now. And once we are done with that, I would like to let everybody else who signed in know that I am going to get the panelists to share some more information with you at the end of the Q&A session as well. So definitely stay tuned. And I'm going to try and focus on questions for the panelists. There are some questions that the panelists may not be able to answer, in which case, please send it to us at team.pg@theredpen.in. And we'll definitely answer your questions for you over email. No doubt about that. But I'm going to first start off with certain questions to the panelists because they're here with us for a very limited amount of time. Somebody asked about 3 years WorkX in Accenture, and will it help with electrical engineering? Please, Zamin, email the question to us and we'll be happy to answer it. Do UK universities guarantee jobs for master's students? Again, it's a question for us, but while I'm scrolling for other questions, no university anywhere globally guarantees any kind of job situations. Please email us this question and I'll be happy to elaborate on that. Aratrika, question for you from Khushbu. How did you choose between MPP and MPA?
I didn't. I applied to both. So MPP, MBA programs do not have a lot of structural difference. In LSE, for instance, MPP is the same program in 1 year. It's more condensed for people who already have some background in policy making. So MPA is more, from what I understand, more on the implementation end of it and less on the quantitative and hands-on analysis end of it. And I wanted the former. I wanted more of implementation, so I went for the MPA.
Right. So in a nutshell, like Aratrika said, there isn't a lot of curriculum difference. It's more about the hard skill versus the strategic operational implementation work. MPP is more hard skill focused and MPA is more of the strategic administrative role of it. So this is, I think, for everybody. One of you can take this. What advice can you offer someone struggling with situating the right motivations for a personal statement, specifically when it involves making and justifying a decisive career change? When it comes to change, Preet, maybe you or Aratrika actually could talk about this because you both have made a career change by choosing your masters. Preet, would you like to take that?
Sure. So, firstly, you have to figure out what you want to do your major in. And if you're sure of that, you can start looking at different curriculums and how they align with the reasons why you chose that particular major. Secondly, justifying your career change. Think about 5 years down the line. You're going to look back and see if that made a difference in your life or no, whether it was the right decision or no. And also think about the job prospects, what you want to do in the future. Does that major align with that? Does that help you unleash the skills that you require to do a particular job that you're very interested in? So you have to do your research and just ask yourself a lot of questions. Just put it down on like in your notes. They'll all be jumbled, but at some point they'll come together.
Perfect. Thank you, Preet. Thank you for that. Ratrika, another question for you. Would somebody would like to know the few advantages of studying in LSE, and what did you specifically like about the curriculum? Ratrika, if you don't mind, can I ask them to connect with you on LinkedIn?
Yeah, sure.
To be very specific about LSE. Kasturi, your question is extremely valid, and I'm sure Ratrika would love to, share some insights about how she chose LSE and the curriculum. Please find her on LinkedIn. Her spelling is in her name, Ratrika Burman, and I'm sure she'll be happy to connect with you, Kasturi. Thank you. Hannah, how about you telling us about how much, actually, this is for CS, computer science. So maybe, Anshul, you can answer this. How much does the GRE score matter when it comes to admits into top 20 universities? Now, this person specifically wants to know for computer science, but given that the profile is good, if I remove the computer science element, what do you think is the weightage given to a good GRE score?
I think, okay, so for example, many of the universities have waived their GRE, so they will not look at the GRE at all. So I think that is, so for those, you don't need to worry about the GRE. But if you want like the top 20, like you want to get into Stanford or MIT, etc., then I think for that, a good GRE score is very important. And it will definitely give you a competitive advantage. And obviously showing them that in your GRE score, your quant is like 168 plus at least. I think that will definitely help. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for that. Hannah, is work experience important for all master's programs? What do you think?
No, I actually thought that a few master's programs in the UK, they didn't want any work experience. And I remember when my sister applied, they even responded saying, you have 2 years work experience, which we don't want. So there are a lot of programs out there that don't require you to have a work experience. But of course, on the flip side, there are many courses that there is an advantage if you show work experience.
Right. And actually what you said kind of answers some of the other questions where somebody's saying, okay, I'm studying computer science. Do I need work ex? Or somebody's saying, do I need work ex for the top 30? It really depends, one, on the program that you're going to study. Two, whether you already have exposure in your related area of work. Three, how competitive is your profile? Four, what are your plans? What are your short-term goals? So because the components are so different, I feel like if each one of you could just send me an email and I'd happily sit down and take the time and answer each one of your specific questions, because these questions are very customized to you and I would like to know more about you before I can answer that question for you. So feel free to send me an email on team.pg@theredpen.in and I will definitely answer them for you. Anshul?
I just want to say one thing. Vedant's question, he points out that he thinks that he will miss out on the relatively higher pay that the US offers. I would just like to say that at the start of your career, the pay is not going to matter as much as what you're learning. Your foundation is what's going to take you to a certain place when you're 50 years old. So don't think about pay when you're thinking about coming to America. Think about what you're going to get out of the master's program. So, I mean, if your reason for not working is solely because of the pay, I would reconsider.
Great advice, Preet. I mean, some people actually think that this is an idealistic advice, but it's not, because the experiences that you gain are things that you cannot write in your resume. And those are the things that convert interviews into opportunities for you. We've seen that through experience. But to go to a good university for the experience is setting the tone right for the rest of your life. I completely agree with that. And a lot of what we've spoken about today, I mean, yes, most of the panelists are going to be entering the industry, but a lot of what we've spoken about today is transferable to research-based programs as well. Remember, the curriculum has to align with your short-term goals. So if you're applying for a research-based program and your goal is research-focused, you have a higher chance of getting picked for that program or interviewed for that program. And the same with the panelists. They did a lot of research into their curriculum and they realized that the curriculum aligns with what their short-term goals are, which is why they've been a good fit for those programs. But yeah, a lot of the knowledge and the advice that is being shared is definitely transferable. All right, moving on. Anshul, how much work experience will you recommend for top MEM programs?
Okay, so if you only, amongst the top MEM programs, only Northwestern and MIT want work experience. The others do not require any work experience. So again, it depends upon your profile.
Perfect. Great answer. Succinct and to the point. How much time did you guys prepare for the GRE? Hannah, how much time preparation?
It took me, I prepared for 3 weeks and I took leave of absence from work during those 3 weeks so I could focus on it. And then I gave my GRE.
Okay. And Preet, you?
It was 2 to 3 months.
2 to 3 months. Anshul?
Also 6 weeks for my first attempt. And then the second attempt, like within 3 weeks, I gave the second attempt, which was not the smartest decision. Because I think if you want to do a second attempt, you need to spend a good amount of time to build up on the thing. Yeah.
Got it. Aratrika?
Yeah, same as Anshul. About 4-5 weeks for the first attempt and 3 weeks for the second attempt.
3 weeks. Okay. Typically, we also recommend anything between 8 to 12 weeks is a good time. You don't want to spend a whole year studying for it. So yeah, if you have like 3 to 6 months, then it's a good time to be able to do that. There are some questions.
Sorry.
Yes,
I think what really helped is because the time that I spent 3 weeks was when I left work and I was doing it. But before that I was preparing, but then you're doing like you're multitasking and doing it. It gets slightly more challenging. But when I took that leave of absence, it was very, very helpful to like just go in fully and focus on it.
Focus on that. Got it. But I wouldn't advise anybody to quit their job to give the GRE or the GMAT, to be honest, because then there's a gap on the resume that you can't explain. So yeah, taking a sabbatical, if your supervisor understands that, okay, you need a few weeks off, it's fine, but don't like say, okay, I'm going to quit my job and study and then find another job. Samita wants to know, and Aratrika, maybe you can take a shot at this one. How do you maintain confidence in your academia, your work experience, and all that you bring, because the admission process is very intimidating and could foster counterproductive self-doubt?
Oh yeah, totally for me. So yeah, I was initially very intimidated. I thought I do not have a very strong chance at any of the universities. And Tripti, I think you and Sonu, you guys had also advised I should probably diversify and not only apply to the top schools. But I was like, I'll either go to these or I'll not go at all because there's no point. So yeah, my problem was that I didn't have a completely relevant profile because I wasn't working in policy. I was working more in corporate. So if there's something like that for you, then again, you'll have to make your profile just more stronger by writing a stronger SOP, getting a stronger GRE score. But honestly, I think it's not as hard as it seems from what I saw. If I can get through, I didn't get amazing scores on my undergrad or postgrad, and GRE was also okay. It was not bad. It was decent. So I think it's just what it looks from the outside. It looks pretty intimidating, but once you go and do it, you'll realize that it's not as hard as it seems. And everyone who gets through usually tells you this. Initially, even people told me this, and I was like, no, that they are just saying that because they got through, but that's actually what kind of happens.
Got it. Okay, now we have like maybe 30 more seconds. I'm going to probably take one more question. Somebody said that they're currently undergoing the application process, getting the documents in place, done one project, have like 2 months of work experience. Is that enough? I'll also be giving my GRE and IELTS. Preet, what do you think? You think that's enough? Documents are in place, one project done. We are sitting in August, 2 months of work experience so far. What do you think?
Frankly, I don't think it's enough. simply because the skills, I mean, you need to show multiple skills. Like a project can probably give you 2 or 3 skills, but I mean, your application will be much stronger when you have, say, 5 to 10 skills that you can talk about and use in different SOPs. Also, you have to justify why you're leaving your job, right? Like in like 2 months or like 4 months. Usually, admissions officers don't like that. Even employees in America don't like that because it's showing how committed you are to something that you've chosen to do. So I would reconsider that.
Okay. Tanay has a question. I think it's for all of you. If you were to go through the whole application process again, what would you do differently and why? And I think let's make it a quick rapid fire so then we can go back to my final question for everybody. What would you do differently and why? Anshul.
I think the thing that I would do differently was, I think, plan my GRE preparation better, and also my second attempt plan it much more better to get the ideal score that I wanted. So I think that was something that I would do differently.
Okay, Preet, you?
Start working on the process as soon as you can. If you're working, try to squeeze in like 2 hours. It's something that I had an issue with, but yeah, I would like just recommend start as early as possible.
Okay. Hannah?
Yeah, I would agree to that point where I didn't have this issue, but it really helped me to start even a year in advance. So I think that's something that people really keep in mind.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Hannah. That kind of effort and time that you put into understand your own narrative and kind of put it all down and then work through and then say, okay, now everything pause. I'm going to focus on the GRE. You were really able to give yourself the time to grow in the process.
Yeah.
Rathika, how about you? What would you do differently?
Yeah, I would take the GRE by July, August, so that August to December I could only focus on SOP and LORs.
Was the SOP that hard to do, guys? Was the SOP really that hard?
No, I think for the SOP, it requires a lot of time and patience. I think like Nimisha herself would say, like, I was quite impatient, but it takes time. Like you need to let it just go about it. So
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
I think
you
that
need
is
to
so
let the story develop slowly, and then see how it goes. Yeah.
perfect. So I'm going to now, I know, guys, there are a lot of other questions. Thank you people so much for sending such amazing questions. But unfortunately, we do have a limitation on time. It is a beginning of a weekend. I want everybody to kind of go back to their lives. And Preet, I want you to go to bed sooner than later. So I'm going to try and wrap this up with one final across the panel round. Before I let you go, can you please share one key detail that you wish you knew from the very start of the process? Something not that you do differently, something that you knew from the beginning of the process versus what you came to know at the end of the process or in the middle of the process.
Yeah, I can go first. I think the most important thing is realizing how important recommendations are, because I think that can either make or break your application. So even if you're an average student, if you have amazing recommendations, it can really boost your application up. So if you have not found someone yet, start speaking, start getting mentors on board, start having conversations with them so that they know you personally and they can do a good recommendation for you.
Got it. Aratrika, for you?
Yeah, I would say be aggressive with your applications, like with your shortlist. It, like I said, it might seem not very achievable at the start, but oftentimes we overestimate or underestimate our abilities. So be aggressive.
Absolutely. Yes. And most often, most of you underestimate your abilities. So I would also completely agree. Everybody should reach for the stars. Preet, what was the one thing you would want to know from the beginning?
The interviews. Starting the process, I had no idea that all these colleges are going to require interviews later on. I mean, I didn't do anything to get better at them, but one thing you can do is start looking at the kind of questions that are being asked during those interviews and start like forming those answers. And you're going to be if you're working or if you're in college, you can try to pick up projects that might align with those questions, so you can talk about them. So yeah, that's something to consider when you start the process.
Okay, and Anshul, you?
I wish I'd known that starting earlier is much more beneficial. So I actually just started like, I think 4 or 5 months earlier before my application, or working on the applications. So then it became quite stressful because I had the GRE, I had to undertake additional project work to spruce up my SOP resume and to talk about it during interviews. And at the same time, I had to ensure that my academic work at NUS remained like similar and never dropped. So I think starting early, I wish I'd known that starting earlier would give me a good amount of time to just breathe, relax, and go through it smoothly. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent. So yes, this is our panel for today. Everybody, there's Preet, Anshul, Hannah, Aratrika, telling you, focus on your recommendations, focus on who you're getting your recommendations from. Don't underestimate yourself. You definitely have a story to tell, and somebody out there wants to listen to it, however competitive they are. Preet that does believe in the power of adding experience and backing your profile up with lots of experience. And that's great advice about knowing what to say in the interview and preparing for that interview with a lot more zest and research. And like Anshul said, start early, everybody. And that's the reason why this journey to college is so important at this time of the year, because this is when each competitive applicant has already started working on the essays, already started contacting the recommenders. Thank you, Anshul, Preet. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Aratrika. Thank you so much for joining us and making such a successful panel discussion out of today. For everybody else who's still logged in, go ahead, drop us an email if you have a specific question about your profile. We will also be having a recording of this available on YouTube. So feel free to, whenever you want to go back to hear what Preet said or Hannah said or any one of us said, you can go back and see a recording on YouTube. Thank you so much. And we will be getting in touch with you and sending you details about our next webinar. We're going to have one in a couple of weeks about writing a statement of purpose, working on that, because like our panel said, it super stressed everybody out. So let's talk about it. Let's address it. And then the Red Pen is going to bring to you a webinar in the next couple of weeks talking about a statement of purpose. Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend ahead. Preet, good night. Thank you. Hannah, Anshul, Aratrika, thank you. Have a great weekend ahead. Thank you so much, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.